The sound of glass shattered. A beer mug hit the wooden floor and cracked like thunder. And just like that, Murphy's Roadhouse fell silent. Every head turned, every breath froze. Because what came next was danger. You think you're something special. The voice cut through the silence like a blade. It was Viper Jackson, 6'3", broad shoulders, whiskey on his breath, and menace in his eyes. His massive hand gripped the collar of a small woman. A woman who was just wiping down tables. Ordinary, quiet, forgettable. The snake tattoo on his neck seemed live as he pulled her closer. "I asked you a simple question, sweetheart," he sneered. "This bar pays protection. Or this bar burns. Which one's it going to be?" The woman's name was Alina Rodriguez. She kept her eyes down. Her body looked small, weak, submissive. Around her, 10 bikers rose from their seats, closing in like wolves. She was barely 5'4". Worn sneakers, loose white shirt, dark hair in a ponytail. To everyone watching, she looked powerless. But what nobody knew was that in exactly 15 minutes, Viper Jackson would be on his knees, begging for mercy. Pause. Think about this. You ever judge someone only by their appearance? Thought they were weak, only to discover they carried a strength beyond imagination. That's the mistake everyone in Murphy's Roadhouse made that night. The tension had been building long before that glass shattered. The Desert Vipers rolled in just after 8 p.m. Their Harleys roared outside, announcing their arrival like thunder. Every customer in the bar tensed up, because this wasn't the first time. 3 bars had already burned in the past month. 2 owners were sent to the hospital. Accidents, people said. But everyone knew the truth. The Vipers controlled fear. Behind the counter, Jocks, a young bartender, was already sweating. "That's them," he whispered to Alina. "The Desert Vipers." They burned Rossetti's place in Oceanside. But Alina, she didn't panic. She kept folding napkins. Triangle after triangle. Perfect, precise, identical. Jake had noticed it before Alina did everything with precision. The way she wiped tables, the way she arranged condiments, the way she never kept her back to the door for long, and now? The leader had entered. Viper Jackson stormed in like a king. His shaved head gleamed under the bar lights. The snake tattoo curled from his jaw down into his vest. Behind him, his men spread out, covering exits, watching angles, establishing control. "Evening, folks," Viper announced. His voice was fake friendly, the kind that came before violence. The regulars shifted in their seats. Most were veterans, tough men. But none wanted trouble with 10 bikers in the corner. Sheriff Tom Bradley set down his coffee. A grizzled war veteran himself, 2 tours in. He racked his hand rested near his hip, where his gun would be if he were on duty. Alina walked over quietly. "What can I get you, gentlemen?" she asked softly. That's when it began. One of the bikers slapped her as she passed. "Start with a smile, sweetheart," he sneered. "You look like someone died." Alina moved just out of reach, smooth, controlled, as if it were an accident. But at WASN single quotes, Jake started to move forward, anger in his face. But Alina glanced at him, just a small shake of her head. "Stay back." She took their orders. She served them quickly, quietly, but she could feel Viper's eyes on her. Finally, he stood, towering over her. "Where's Murphy? We need to discuss business." "Mr. Murphy's in Phoenix this week," Alina replied. "I'm just covering shifts. Then you'll have to pass on a message." His voice grew darker. "Tell Murphy the Desert Vipers offer protection. $5,000 a month. Nothing bad happens to this place." Alina wiped the table again. Calm, silent. "I'll let him know you stopped by." That's when the mask dropped. Viper leaned closer. menace dripping from every word. This isn't a social call, sweetheart. Every bar from here to San Diego is under our protection. Those that refuse, he flicked a lighter. Click, click, accidents happen. The circle of bikers closed. Tighter encirclement. Military tactic. But Elena's sharp eyes had already found the flaws. One man limped. Two weren't watching. The sheriff had shifted for a better angle, and Viper too close. Overconfident, Elena's hand touched the dog tag beneath her shirt. Cold metal. Warm memories. 3 tours in Iraq, Afghanistan, 15. Confirmed kills. 4 bronze stars. 1 purple heart. She had come here for peace. But peace doesn't always last. Viper's patience was slipping. His smirk grew sharper. "Look, sweetheart," he muttered, voice low, dangerous. "I'm trying to make this easy. Don't push me." He leaned closer, his breath thick with whiskey. "You convince Murphy to pay. You talk him into our deal. And maybe, just maybe, I'll throw in a little bonus for you." He dragged his eyes over her uniform. "What do you even make here? Minimum wage?" "A few lousy tips. I could take care of you. I could give you more than this dump ever will." The bar was silent. All eyes on Elena. Waiting. Slowly, she raised her head. For the first time, she looked him in the eyes. Her brown gaze was calm. "To calm, thank you," she whispered. "I'm fine with what I have." That quiet answer cut deeper than a scream. It wasn't fear. It wasn't begging. It was steady, unshaken, and that made Viper furious. His thick fingers tightened around her arm, squeezing harder. Hard enough to leave bruises. "You listen here, you little sir." The single word sliced through the tension. Sheriff. Tom Bradley had stood. Every inch of him straightened, his voice carrying years of command. "I'm going to ask you police to take your hand off the lady." The bar held its breath again. Bradley wasn't in uniform, but you didn't need a badge to see the soldier in him. The way he stood, the authority in his tone, the quiet confidence of a man who had faced war. Viper turned his head, grinning cruelly. "And what exactly are you going to do about it, old man?" He chuckled, his crew joining in. "You're off duty. You've got no weapon. You're outnumbered 10-1. Sit back down before you get hurt." But the sheriff didn't flinch, didn't move, and that small act spoke volumes. Around the room, others began to stir. Men who'd been quiet until now. Men with worn leather jackets, faded tattoos, or military pins glinting faintly on their collars. At least 5 of them shifted forward, shoulders squared, eyes locked on the Vipers. Soldiers, recognizing the call of duty. The Desert Vipers noticed too. Their grins faltered. The numbers were no longer as safe as they thought. The air grew thick, like the charged silence before a storm. One wrong move, and Murphy's Roadhouse would explode into violence. "Tom, it's okay," Elena said softly, her voice calm but steady. "These gentlemen were just leaving." Her words should have ended it. But pride is a dangerous thing. Vipers. Pride snapped. He yanked Elena closer, his fist grabbing her collar. The wood of chairs scraped sharply against the floor as more patrons stood. Jake, behind the bar, grabbed the baseball bat. The whole room braced, but Viper only saw Elena. "You know what your problem is," he spat, his face inches from hers. "You think you're better than us. You think you're too good to show respect." His eyes burned with rage. His hands bunched her shirt into his fist. And then rip. The sound was raw. Final. Her white shirt tore down the front. The fabric gave way under his strength. Elena stumbled back. Her shirt hung in tatters. Only a thin black tank top remained, and that's when the world stopped. The jukebox clicked silent between songs. The air froze. The universe itself seemed to pause because on her back was no ordinary tattoo. It was an eagle, a globe, an anchor. The United States Marine Corps spread across her shoulder blades, ink so detailed you could see the feathers of the eagle's wings, the emblem of warriors, of Marines, but beneath it, bold black letters read, First Force Recon. Gasps broke out across the bar. Veterans stiffened. Even those who weren't military knew what that meant. Force Recon. The elite of the elite. The Marines who went first, where others feared to go. And below that, carved forever in ink, Gunny E. Rodriguez, 0311. Her name, her rank, her role, infantry. The sharpest tip of the spear. But the tattoo wasn't all. Her back told a harsher story. A puckered bullet wound near her shoulder. Shrapnel scars webbing across her ribs. A jagged knife scar that disappeared below. Her tank top dot wounds that only one kind of life could explain combat. The Desert Vipers froze. The confidence drained from their faces like water from a broken cup. Viper Jackson stood still. His hand clutched the torn fabric, but his mouth hung open. His brain fought to process what he was staring at. Force Recon. Sheriff Bradley breathed awe in his voice. Holy hell. The change in Alina was subtle, but undeniable. She hadn't moved. She hadn't raised her fists. But her presence transformed. Her shoulders squared. Her chin rose. Her voice shifted from soft to steel. Mr. Jackson, she said. Calm, firm, unshakable. You owe me an apology for destroying my property. The room trembled with silence. Every soul could feel it. The balance of power had shifted, and Viper Jackson's self-proclaimed king of the road had just picked a fight with a Marine warrior. One of the deadliest kind. Viper's face twisted. Confusion, recognition, disbelief, and then fear. His grip on the torn shirt loosened. The fabric slipped to the floor like a white flag of surrender. How do you know my name? He stammered. For the first time, his voice cracked. No longer the roar of a leader. Now, the whimper of a man caught. Alina didn't answer immediately. Instead, she turned slowly. She wanted the whole bar to see. Every detail of the tattoo. Every scar carved into her skin. People stared, frozen. Some raised phones, recording this moment. They knew history was unfolding in front of them. And then Alina spoke. Stephen Jackson, she said calmly. Her words sharp, deliberate. Dishonorably discharged. 6 years ago. For stealing and selling military equipment. Viper's eyes went wide. You founded the Desert Vipers 3 years back. Since then, you're wanted for questioning in 4 arson cases and 2 aggravated assaults. The silence grew heavier. Like a weight pressing on everyone's chest. I make it. My business, Alina continued, to know who threatens establishments in my area of operation. Viper opened his mouth to speak, but stopped, because the truth had hit him like a hammer. Area of operation. Those words weren't casual. They were military. And they meant one thing. This was her battlefield now. From the corner booth, an aqua. Older man stood slowly. His movements careful, heavy with object, filled with authority. Alina turned and recognized him. Colonel Mike Harrison, retired Medal of Honor recipient. She had served him coffee every Tuesday for months, and never known. Now his voice carried across the silence. Gunny Rodriguez, he said. The snap of command still sharp despite the years. First Force Recon. I remember you now. Operation Phantom Fury, Fallujah, 2004. The room inhaled. A whisper ran through the crowd. Fallujah, one of the deadliest battles. Elena's body shifted slightly. Instinct, training. Her back straightened as if she were standing before a superior officer again. Her voice softened. "Sir," she said, "you're the one who held that schoolhouse. 17 hours, broken rifle, only 3 magazines, until the choppers made it through." Her words weren't a question. They were memory. Respect Colonel Harrison's eyes narrowed, as if revisiting ghosts. "I had help," he said quietly. "Lance Corporal Williams, PFC Chen." Elena's throat tightened. Her voice caught. "They didn't make it out." Barr stayed silent. No one dared interrupt the weight of fallen names. Then another voice rose. Maria Santos, the woman who ran the flower shop down the street. But now, she wasn't just Maria. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "I was a Navy corpsman, attached to Marine units. Camp Leatherneck, I remember you." Elena turned to her slowly. "They brought you in, 60% burns, 3 bullet wounds, shrapnel everywhere. The doctor said you'd never walk again." Gasps spread. All eyes on Elena. Elena took a slow breath. Her answer simple. Doctors can be wrong. The Vipers shifted. Their circle broken. Their bravado gone. Fear painted across their faces. They began edging toward the door. But their path was blocked. 5 men stood there now. Men who had quietly moved into position during the conversation. Their posture unmistakable. Combat veterans. The kind who had fought for real. The kind the bikers could never intimidate. One of them? A broad-shouldered Hispanic man with old sergeant stripes tattooed on his forearm, smirked. "Leaving already, without apologizing to the lady." The Desert Vipers froze. The room shifted. Again, the power was no longer theirs. Viper's face turned red. Humiliation burned his pride. He stammered, desperate. "Look, we didn't know." "We didn't." Elena stepped forward. And despite being nearly a foot shorter, her presence towered over him. Her eyes locked on his. "Didn't know what?" she asked coldly. "That I bled for this country. That I earned the right to be treated with basic human dignity. Or just that I could end you in ways you can't even imagine." The bar trembled with her words. Even the veterans men hardened by combat felt the weight. Of them, her hand brushed unconsciously to her lower back. The compact medical kit she always carried pressed against her spine. Combat supplies, hemostatic agents, pain meds, bandages, the kind of kit you carried if you had lived through war and expected to face it again. The weight comforted her, because Marines are always prepared. Even when they're serving drinks in a roadside bar. All of the above, Viper admitted finally, his voice small. Stripped of arrogance, Sheriff Bradley stepped forward now, his phone in hand. "Ms. Rodriguez," he said, formal. "Would you like to press charges? We have plenty of witnesses. Assault, destruction of property." The bar buzzed with agreement. Dozens of heads nodded. Everyone had seen it. Everyone was ready to testify. Elena paused. She let the silence build, then shook her head. "No need, Sheriff. I think Mr. Jackson and his friends were just leaving. And they won't be back." Her eyes locked on Viper's. Her voice soft, but laced with steel. "Will you, Mr. Jackson?" The biker boss, once feared, once untouchable, nodded rapidly, his head bobbing like a puppet on strings. "No, ma'am. We won't be back. In fact, we'll make sure everyone knows Murphy's is off limits. Completely off limits." Elena didn't blink. Her voice pressed harder. "And the other establishments you've been threatening." Viper swallowed. His lips trembled. "We'll reconsider our business model." And then her command came. Sharp, fierce, final. "Neil, The word cracked through the air like a whip. It wasn't a request. It wasn't a threat. It was an order. And before his brain even processed it, Viper Jackson dropped. On his knees, the room gasped. The mighty Biker King, kneeling before a woman he had mocked only minutes ago. Her eyes burned down into his. You assaulted me, destroyed my property, threatened my workplace, my people. Her voice was calm, almost gentle, but every syllable cut like a blade. In some parts of the world I've operated in, you'd already be dead. But we do things differently here. She leaned closer. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to apologize properly, and then you're going to leave. And you're going to spread the word this county is under the protection of Marines. Marines who've seen scarier things than you. On our easiest days, the Desert Vipers leader stammered out his apology. Broken, humiliated, on his knees in front of his men. In front of a bar full of witnesses, and when Alina finally nodded, he scrambled to his feet. The Vipers followed like whipped dogs. Broken, shaken, the night had changed forever. The Desert Vipers shuffled toward the door, their boots heavy, their shoulders slumped. The swagger they had walked in with was gone. At the threshold, Viper turned back, his face pale. Hi. Why hide it? Why hide it? Why pretend to be just a server? The entire bar leaned in. Waiting for her answer, Elena's eyes softened, but her tone remained steady. Because, Mr. Jackson, real warriors don't need to advertise. Now, we don't wear our strength on the outside. We carry it quietly and use it only when necessary. Her words lingered in the air like smoke. She straightened her torn shirt. I came here for peace, to pour coffee, to wipe tables, to feel normal. Tonight, you took that from me. The bikers didn't reply. They didn't dare. They walked out into the night, their motorcycles growling. But even their engines sounded smaller, weaker through the window. The patrons watched their taillights vanish down the dark highway. And somehow, everyone knew they would never come back. For a long moment, silence held Murphy's Roadhouse. Then, slowly, voices rose, a whisper, a murmur, until finally Colonel Harrison spoke. Gunny, he said, his tone respectful. If you don't mind me asking, why here? With your record, you could be anywhere. Private security, law enforcement, teaching at Quantico. Alina bent down, picked up her torn shirt, and folded it carefully. Her movements precise as always, because, sir, I've done my time being extraordinary. Her eyes clouded with memory. I was the first through doors. The last one out. 47 confirmed kills. Twice as many unconfirmed. A box full of medals in storage. Nightmares? That wake me at 0300. She slipped behind the bar, pulled out a spare Murphy's Roadhouse shirt, buttoned it with steady hands. I came here because no one knew me, because I could pour coffee without people looking at me with awe or pity or fear. Maria Santos' voice trembled. But they ran you out tonight. Those bikers took your peace. Alina shook her head. No, they reminded me of something I'd almost forgotten. Peace isn't found by hiding. Peace is created by standing your ground. The bar was still. Her words hung in the air, carved into every heart. Jake finally spoke. His voice, young, shaky. Alina, I had no idea. 6 months I've worked with you, and I never knew. That was the point, Jake. Her smiles, small but real. For once, I didn't want to be Gunnery Sergeant Rodriguez, Force Recon Marine. I wanted to be Alina, the woman who keeps your coffee hot, your tables clean. From the back, someone called out, "But you're a hero." Her expression hardened. No, Williams and Chen were heroes. They died protecting civilians. I'm just someone who was too stubborn to die, and too damaged to do anything else but survive." The bar went quiet again. The weight of her words pressed down on every soul. Colonel Harrison stepped forward slowly. "Gunny, what you did in Fallujah saved 37 children. Williams. And Chen didn't die for nothing." Elena's hands stilled. Her voice almost broke. 38, sir. One more was born on the evac chopper. The mother, she named her Elena." A heavy silence spread. A silence filled with respect, with grief, with awe. Here was a woman who had given everything and asked for nothing. Jake swallowed. "So what now? You can't be invisible anymore. Word will spread. Everyone will know who you are," Elena thought. For a moment, then picked up a tray, collected empty glasses, wiped down a table. "Then I'll have to be visible, but on my terms." Over the next hour, the bar slowly returned to life. Drinks poured, laughter returned. But something had changed. The veterans in the room sat straighter. They spoke to each other more openly. Scars were no longer hidden. Stories no longer locked away. Elena had given them permission to be themselves. Later, as she delivered drinks, Sheriff Bradley approached. "Elena," he said softly, "I should apologize. I saw the signs. The way you moved. The way you watched everything. I should have stepped in sooner." She shook her head gently. "You did exactly what you should have done, Sheriff. You tried to de-escalate. That's all anyone can ask." She paused. "Army, right?" He blinked. 2 tours. Infantry? Nothing. Special, Elena's voice firmed. Every soldier is special. Anyone who stands up when others won't. Who goes where others fear to go never diminish that. As the night wound down, a young woman approached Elena shyly. She couldn't have been older than 22. Lean frame. Eyes haunted. The 1,000-yard stare Elena knew too well. "Ma'am," she said, voice shaking. "Lance Corporal Sarah Webb, just back from Afghanistan. I heard what you said about not going back to normal. How do you do it? How do you survive after all that? And function?" Elena set down her tray, looked the young Marine in the eyes. "You don't go back, Lance Corporal. Not really. The person you were doesn't exist anymore. You build someone new, with the pieces that survived. And then you find a new mission." She gestured around. "The bar? This is mine. Creating a place where veterans can come and don't have to explain themselves. Where civilians learn we're not broken, just different. Where someone like you can ask someone like me how to survive, and get an honest answer." The young Marine blinked back tears. Elena's voice softened even more. "One day at a time. One table at a time. One act of service at a time." Closing time came. Jake and Elena cleaned in silence. But Jake kept stealing glances. Finally, he blurted out, "Do you regret it? Having your cover blown?" Elena paused, turning a chair upside down on a table, then sighed. "You know what? No. I've been hiding for 3 years, pretending that part of me didn't exist. But it does. It's as much a part of me as my hands, my eyes, my heart. Maybe it's time I stop running." Jake hesitated. "Will you stay here?" "At Murphy's." Elena smiled faintly. "Where else would I go? This is my post now." And Marines don't abandon their posts. The next morning proved her right. Murphy's parking lot was full. Word had spread. Veterans from 3 counties came just to see the Force Recon Marine who faced down a biker gang without fear. But Elena didn't bask in attention. She tied on her apron, brewed coffee, took orders, served tables with her usual precision. Yes, People thanked her for her service. Yes, reporters came sniffing for a story, but Alina always redirected. Me, your story, she'd say. Slowly, Murphy's transformed. The walls filled with photos, medals, memorabilia. A small military library appeared in the corner. Every Tuesday became Veterans Night. And Alina. She no longer hunched her shoulders. She no longer hid her eyes. She moved with quiet confidence. Not because she needed recognition, but because she had found her mission again. 3 months later, a package arrived. Inside, a purple heart, polished to a mirror shine. With a note, Gunny Rodriguez, you left this behind at Leatherneck. Thought you might want it back, Corman Santos. Alina held it for a long time, then walked to the wall where other veterans had hung their treasures. She placed it beside a photo of 3 Marines, dirty, smiling, standing in front of a bullet-riddled schoolhouse. The caption read, Heroes of Fallujah, LCPL Williams, PFC Chen, Gunny Rodriguez. Jake stood beside her. I've been thinking of enlisting, he whispered, because of you. Because of what you represent. Service, sacrifice. Something bigger than yourself. Alina studied him, her voice firm, gentle. Those are good reasons, but do it for yourself. The Corps takes everything you have and asks for more. Be sure you're willing to pay that price. Jake swallowed. Were you willing? Elena's hand touched her hidden dog tags. Her answer came softly. Every damn day, Jake, and I'd do it again. But that's me. You must find your own answer. She turned back to work, serving tables, wiping counters, pouring coffee, her reflection caught in the mirror. Not the naive girl who had enlisted, not the broken veteran who had tried to disappear, but something new, something forged in fire, tempered by choice, a warrior. Still serving, still protecting, still faithful, semper fidelis, always faithful. And Murphy's Roadhouse would never be the same.